Hello, you beautiful legends, and welcome to another episode of Ben and Joel Reviews. I'm Ben.
And I'm Joel.
And this is the podcast where we discuss movies, TV shows, and theatre.
And whatever else we want.
So please, sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Spoilers.
Oh my god, we actually remembered to put a spoiler alert at the start for a change.
I believe we have.
Oh my god, look at us go.
Watch out for the spoilers! They're coming to get you!
So, at the end... hi, we're back.
We are back.
Yeah, we've had a little break. Mm-hmm. I have had quite a significant life change.
Yes.
And this lovely man here has been very, very supportive. And we took a little break so that I could kind of focus on some personal stuff for a bit. Mm-hmm. But we're back. I'm not going to go into details because I want to maintain some privacy.
Of course.
But we're here again.
We are. And we know we haven't yet finished the Batman Begins review. We will return to it.
We
but
just needed a little break, I think.
Yeah. Not just that, I think because it's the new year. Oh, and by the way, we hope you all had a lovely Christmas and a new year.
I hope it was fantastic.
So because it's the new year, we wanted to start watching new films.
New year, new us.
Yeah. And I thought, seeing as literally at the start of the year, Nosferatu came out. So I thought, we could review this.
And so we shall.
I
remember seeing a trailer for it a little while back and sort of kind of quietly registering, I want to see that. And then immediately forgot about it. And then it wasn't until you were sort of talking about it that I was like, the moment you mentioned it, I was like, this is going to end up on the podcast, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
here
we are.
Yeah. Again, I remember seeing the trailer for it and I was very excited because I liked how limited it was. It didn't give anything away.
It sort of gave the vibe, but really left so much out that like most of the film was a surprise.
Yeah.
In some ways, despite it being a remake. And then obviously based on
the Dracula novel.
Yeah.
Because for those who don't know, again, switch this off, go see the film, and then come back.
Yeah, this was such good quality that, like, if you haven't seen it, you shouldn't be listening to this right now. Like,
yeah,
there was so much to enjoy. I genuinely, I didn't expect it to be bad. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But I didn't expect to enjoy it nearly as much as I did. These kind of films are very much your speed, Ben. Like, absolutely. But I can be a bit more hit and miss on this kind of film, but I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
So yeah, go and watch it and support the wonderful people that made it. Like it's got an absolute powerhouse of a cast. The direction is just and it needs to be seen.
Yeah. I rewatched the original last night at the time that we're recording this. I was quite surprised. I mentioned this to you before we started recording that I didn't get bored once. And it says quite a lot that there are a lot of films nowadays that do quite bore me, but a silent film that came out over 100 years ago kept me thoroughly entertained from start to finish. Yeah. And I know that at the time when they made the original, it was very clearly based on Bram Stoker's novel of Dracula, but they had changed names of the characters and certain places, and I think they changed certain very small plot points. So obviously, instead of Count Dracula, he's Count Orlok. Instead of Jonathan Harker, he's Thomas Hutter.
The difference between like Harker and Hutter,
it's
such a short little leap.
Yeah, and instead of Renfield, I believe his name is Ernok. But they made the original without the author's permission.
Yeah. See, because I thought like Nosferatu was just like some name that had been plucked out by whoever had made it to like name their sort of monster or whatever. And then you explained to me what it actually meant.
Yes, it's Nosferatu is the German word for vampire, which is quite cool.
Yeah, it's a cool word.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nosferatu.
Yeah.
So good.
And it was Bram Stoker's wife, or widow, because Bram Stoker had died by this point. She sued them. She took them to court for copyright infringement. And the court ruled that all copies of the film to be destroyed. But by that point, some copies of the film had already been distributed.
Yeah. What year was this?
So the film was made. It came out in 1922.
Yeah.
The court, I believe, was 1925.
Blimey. That must have been like one of the earliest documented cases for like copyright law.
I think it was
film.
the first.
Was it?
I think.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I wonder what if there's like any like documentation on the actual case itself. I think that'd be like really interesting to read through.
Oh yeah, there has to be.
I just get
surely.
nerdy about those things.
No, yeah. So that happened, and I mean, I can get behind Stoker for obviously taking them to court and whatnot, because obviously it's her husband's work.
Yeah,
they did it without his permission or her permission.
You protect the artists. Artists, do the work and deserve to be paid for their work and their IPs and their characters.
Exactly.
We disapprove of of swindling.
But in this case, I'm quite glad the film was made, and I'm quite glad some copies survived, because it's now, I mean, it's become one of the most iconic horror movies ever made.
Yeah.
So many horror films have been inspired by the original Nosferatu, especially the imagery, the image of him walking, of his silhouette walking up the stairs, and his hands are sort of poking out like this. His hands look like really like bent sticks. And
yeah. I haven't seen the original, but I know the iconography of it.
Yeah.
Even having not seen it.
Yeah.
Because of like my experience with horror films and sort of pop culture, you can see the signs when something's been inspired by it. Clearly.
Yeah. And I mentioned in a previous episode, there is a scene in Stanley Kubrick's The Shining where Wendy is walking upstairs. She has a knife in her hand because she realizes at this point that the house is haunted and she's trying to find her son. And her silhouette is illuminated on the wall, and it looks like Orlok from Nosferatu. Which
cool.
I thought was brilliant. And so, just over a century later, Robert Eggers has now remade the film.
I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the time when things are remade, you and I will watch a trailer together and go, why are they remaking this?
Yeah.
Why is this? Do you think Nosferatu needed to be
100%.
Do you think?
100%.
I would agree.
Yeah. I saw the trailer. Well, no, not even that. I remember hearing the announcement that Robert Eggers was remaking it, and I instantly thought, yes. Because I like Robert Eggers.
What has he directed before?
So Nosferatu is his fourth feature film.
Okay.
His first was The Witch, which is great.
Not seen it.
His second was The Lighthouse.
Oh, that's okay. That's why I know his name.
Yeah.
The Lighthouse is fantastic.
Oh, it's brilliant. His third was The Northman, which I haven't seen.
No, I've not seen that.
But I've heard good things. And he's now doing
now that you
Nosferatu.
say that he did The Lighthouse, I can see some sort of quirks of his directing style in kind of both films. That makes so much sense. Yeah, because I remember really loving The Lighthouse as well.
Oh, it's great. So, when I heard that it was announced that he was going to be remaking Nosferatu, I instantly thought, brilliant. It's Robert Eggers, and I'm a big fan of his films, and I love the way he directs his films. And secondly, it's been so long since the original. The original came out in 1922. This was during the silent era.
Yeah, enough time has elapsed.
Exactly.
It's not like The Lion King. Take note, Disney. Take note.
Werner Herzog did his remake of Nosferatu in the 70s. I believe it was 79, called Nosferatu the Vampire. I don't know if there are any other versions of Nosferatu that I know of.
There's the £100 budget version that I made alone in my bedroom as a one-act thing. I'm just kidding.
For a split second, I couldn't tell if he was joking or not.
It's the kind of thing that I would do.
And so 50-odd years on from that, Robert Eggers has now come out with his version.
He was a tremendous choice for director, I must say.
Well, he was very passionate about it.
You can tell, it comes across.
He had been wanting to make this for about 10 years.
Wow, okay, so he was pushing... So this is like a passion project for him?
Very, very much
Wow,
so,
okay.
yes. He had already written the script 10 years ago.
Oh, gosh.
And I think it was over that time, he only made, very small changes.
Yeah. But it wouldn't need a lot of tweaking.
No.
The story as it is fantastic.
Yeah.
The source material as well, it's just so timeless that if you change it too much, you run the risk of it not bearing a resemblance to the original.
Yeah.
And kind of coming across a bit tacky and cheap.
Exactly. Yeah. So I've seen it twice. The first time I took my dad to the cinema to see it. And then the second time was when I went with you.
Yes.
And our friend Mark.
Yes. He will come up again.
Yes. I forgot. Yeah. Yes, he will.
Yeah. Love you, Mark.
We do love you, Mark. That man makes me laugh. But
What a wonderful man.
yeah. So I really enjoyed this.
Yeah. Well, you'd already seen it, and then it was your
Yeah.
idea to kind of go and see it again. I think I must have seen the trailer maybe twice, so
Yeah.
I was going in pretty blind. My sort of knowledge on Nosferatu was very, very limited, and I got most of it through you.
Yeah.
So I went in very kind of fresh for this. I loved it.
Yeah.
I jumped pretty much instantly at it as well.
Yeah. So again, just final warning: huge spoilers. Please go see this film at the cinema.
Yeah, we really don't want to spoil when Danny DeVito turns up at the end and offers Nosferatu an egg in this trying time.
That would have been amazing if that happened.
Yeah. He'd have been a great casting for Nosferatu.
He would, yeah. Just a tiny Nosferatu. But yes, so yeah, big spoilers. Please switch this off, go see it, and then come back. It really is worth seeing on the big screen.
This is probably the most well-crafted film I've seen in a very, very long time.
Nice.
That, like, real high praise. Really, really love this one.
I have to agree. I have to think, yeah. I think because as I was leaving the cinema on my first viewing of it, I really was quite taken aback. Genuinely, I got a little teary-eyed.
Yeah,
because
so emotional.
Yeah, well, just because it was just so well made. And again, you know, the story is timeless. You know, I've always loved the Dracula story. But yes, so that's your final warning. We are now diving into spoilers. So the film starts with Ellen Hutter, played brilliantly by Lily Rose Depp.
Yeah.
Wow, was she good in this?
Her performance blew me away.
She was definitely one of... I mean, the whole cast in this were great.
Yeah, absolute units.
Yeah, but she was definitely one of the main highlights.
I approach sort of scenes where someone's like having like nightmares or, you know, under some kind of possession or spell. They tend to be quite, I don't know what the term is, but you can see when someone's acting those things.
Yeah.
Right, and it's quite easy
Bit
to
tacky.
see. Yeah, tacky
Yeah.
maybe is the word. But throughout the course of the film, I mean, you see it pretty much straight away as well, but throughout the course of the film, we'll probably hit them one by one. There are moments where there are like possessions and dream sequences and you know, all these other various things to make like the, you know, the film scary. Like you see like unnatural movements and like the eyes kind of go into the back of the head and stuff. Yeah. But she absolutely sells it.
Oh, what? Yeah.
And, like the way she's throwing herself around, like having like these spasms, it was genuinely scary.
Yeah.
And not for a second did I think she's acting. Not for a second. And it me up straight away.
It's a very physically demanding role.
Yeah.
And yeah, as you said, she absolutely smashed it out the park. So I think it's amazing that she's... Because I suppose with celebrities like Lily Rose Depp, who already have, you know, very famous celebrity parents, there is that almost inevitable thing where people will instantly go, oh, the only reason they're famous is because of who their mum is or who their dad is, you know, who their parents are. And I suppose you might get some people who have thought that in regards to Lily Rose Depp. However, because she absolutely blew me away in this, she is 100% her own person.
Yeah, she's standing on her own 2 feet and
exactly.
carving out her own career.
It really doesn't matter who her parents are. She has proven that she is an incredible actress. And I think she's in her 20s. I mean, what a bright future she has ahead of her. My God.
She's going to go on to do some pretty amazing things.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel like I could confidently call it now that within 5 years she'll probably have an Oscar.
Who knows?
I think
she very well could.
A sound call.
Yeah. Her performance in this was just so good. So I mean, literally as the film starts, she appears from the darkness, and it's almost like she's praying, and she's saying, "Come to me, hear my call." And then we hear the long, dragged whispers of Orlok. Again, played excellently by Bill Skarsgård.
Again, what a performance!
I couldn't recognise him.
No. I had no idea, but I knew it was him because I knew he was casting it as Orlok, but doesn't look like him at all. He's really carving out a name for himself where he takes on a role and just vanishes into it.
Completely transforms himself.
Like Pennywise
Yep.
was like the one that I immediately went to. But there's like other things beside. Wasn't he in like The Devil All the Time?
He was,
Tom
yeah.
Holland as well.
Yeah, Netflix film, yeah.
Where obviously you can see more of him, but again, his acting is so good. I'm not looking at him going,
No,
that's
yeah.
Bill Skarsgård.
Yeah, he's amazing with his voice. Because, in The Devil All the Time, he's got a very strong, almost like the South of America
like the really
accent.
thick southern accent.
And then in this, it's just Transylvanian classic Dracula rolling his R's like, my love, come to me. Like,
yeah, it's so good. Like the man's got
it's
so
insane.
much range. Do you not think?
Oh,
So much
100%,
range.
100%.
And like, just he sort of metamorphosizes into a role.
Yeah.
And so he's just going from strength to strength at the moment.
100%.
And this is like a performance of a career.
Definitely.
Like this is like so defining. I mean, Pennywise was defining
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
But like he just keeps knocking out great performances,
100%.
like just off the bat. I mean, was he in The Crow?
He was.
I've not seen it. But
Nor have I, but
we'll ignore The Crow.
we'll ignore that one. Most actors, they do a stinker from time to time. It happens. But, oh God, yeah. See, again, he's someone else who's just got an amazing career ahead of him, as well as already having an amazing career currently. Oh my God, he is mesmerizing in this. In the scariest way possible. Yeah, he is terrifyingly mesmerizing.
You can't look away.
Yeah, it's
But
like
then,
you want
at the
to.
same time, you don't want to look.
No.
Because it's quite grotesque.
Yeah, you want to look away, but for some reason your eyes are just glued to the screen.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. So she's coming out and she's calling for him and he's whispering, and then she sort of wanders outside, and then he suddenly grabs her neck and he appears and he's there, and it's a very quick flash, which was great because we don't want to see him just yet.
Yeah.
We want the build up.
Yeah. Nice little slow burn.
Yeah, and from the moment when he grabbed her neck, obviously that the music's like boom and she's screaming, and Joel, bless his little heart, himself.
Yeah, listen, my little heart can't take it. Leave me be.
I remember when that happened, and I turned to you and I very quietly said to you, "Did you jump, dear?" And you went, "Yes."
Yes, I did. I was hoping you wouldn't have noticed, but you did. You.
So when that happened, and like the camera, I didn't jump. I mean, I watch horror films all the time, so I'm almost like immune to it.
Desensitized.
Yeah. So that happens. I still thought it was cool though, and then the camera sort of pans into darkness, and then the title appears. I thought, cool, setting the tone. And then she wakes up. So you kind of led to believe that it was a dream that she was having, and she's begging her husband Thomas, played by the great Nicholas Hoult. Again, I think we're just going to say every actor we introduce at this, we're just going to say we're great.
Yeah.
Because they're all really good.
See, I've had a bit of a strange relationship with Nicholas Hoult over the years. I don't know why that is. Was it him who started in Skins?
Yes.
I don't know why, but I always just think of him in Skins and remember not really liking Skins very much.
Would that have been because of his character?
Maybe. I don't think it's him. And I will totally say that any issue, I don't have personal beef with Nicholas Hoult. But like
You don't know him.
But there've been times where I've like not watched a film because he's in it.
Okay.
And I feel like I've slept on him because having watched this, I'm like, oh. And obviously very recently, the Superman trailer came out.
Yes.
He's Lex Luthor, and he looks fantastic. So I feel like I need to kind of go back through his backlog of films and sort of play catch up a little bit. Because of this weird prejudice based on Skins that I had.
Oh, and he was also in About a Boy with Hugh Grant.
Oh my god, he was. I don't think I've
he was-
seen it.
he
I've
was
seen
the child,
clips,
yeah.
But yeah, oh my god.
Yeah.
I need to start there
Yeah.
then, clearly.
Okay, so going from that then, what did you think of him in this?
I was shocked by his performance because I feel like, again, there was part of me for a second watching it was like, he started in Skins. It's like he seems to have gone from strength to strength, and this performance was smashing.
Yeah.
Absolutely smashing. Like, you can feel like the chemistry between him and Lily Rose Depp.
Yep.
Straight away.
Yep.
They sell their relationship and their marriage. When he's on his own and he's making his journey, he sells the whole sort of unease and being a bit of a fish out of water.
Yep.
Where he is. When he's sort of trapped in the... Is it a castle?
Castle, yeah.
Yeah. Is it a castle? Of course it's a castle. No, it's a Home Bargains.
You are late for work. I'm so sorry, my lord.
middle aisle.
So, clean up in aisle 4.
Very good, sir. Like, his fear comes across, and it's not necessarily like fear for the threats that are around him, but like sort of internal as well. I mean, I know that was like sort of an acting 101 is sort of, you need to sort of express the internal feelings outwardly, but he does it in a very, very professional way, and it's amazing.
So he's called to work. There's a big promotion that he's up for. He doesn't know whether or not he's going to get it, so he sets off. And it's almost like Lily Rose Depp can see into the future. It's almost like she has this feeling that he's already got the promotion, because she says. And I believe that is from Dracula. I thought it was from the original Nosferatu, because I remember it, but it's not. So I believe it's from Dracula that the love interest already knows. He rushes to work, and I love that sequence where he's running through town, and there's all the people and the great set. And in the background, you can see those huge ships, which obviously would have been CGI'd. But it just looked fantastic. Just watching that, I could feel the cold. I could feel the stone path that his shoes were hitting on as he was running to work. Everything about that sequence, I mean, the whole film, but especially that sequence, I really felt it. Felt so real and genuine. And he gets to work. And he goes to see his boss, Enoch, who was played by Simon McBurney, again, who was just... I think he was the one actor in this who you could tell he was having so much fun playing his character.
It's a bit of scenery chewing.
Definitely.
If I dare say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he was great. When he kind of pops up again later, it took me a second to realise it was the same person.
Yeah.
Because, like, the second time you see him, he looks so dishevelled, and he's obviously not of sound mind. That it took me a second to make that connection.
Yeah. So he sees Enoch, who is essentially his boss, and he says to him, there is a gentleman who is requesting to purchase a property here in Visbog, I believe that's how you pronounce it.
But sir, it's an old ruin.
Yes. And of course, this gentleman has requested to purchase this particular old ruin. He cannot come there. It is Thomas who has to go to the gentleman to sign all the paperwork that he's signing, and to then, I guess, bring him back. And his boss is like, you will be rewarded handsomely. You will get this promotion.
So this raises a question. Obviously, we discover that he is sort of an agent of Orlok.
He's very, it's very clear that he is a humble servant.
Yes. So at this moment, is he already serving Orlok?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know, because I want to know when that would have occurred, when Orlok...
I mean, that raises another interesting question. Could Robert Eggers do a prequel?
That could be interesting.
Because, it's never explained.
It doesn't need to be explained. It's like, this is me really like being nitpicky.
No, I suppose it is more fun to leave it to our imagination as to how they met.
But sort of being like a very powerful vampire who's probably lived thousands of years. He's probably got like an agent in every major town.
That's very true.
You know?
That is very true.
That would make sense.
Yeah. So Thomas says, what is the name of this gentleman? Orlok. And so he has to travel to Transylvania.
Do they say Transylvania?
So they never say it.
I don't think they did they?
Nock shows a map to Thomas of where he needs to go. And if you look carefully, you can see Transylvania upside down.
Ah, okay. So do you think they weren't using Transylvania because the original wouldn't have used Transylvania?
Possibly,
because
but then
copyright.
Well, copyright wouldn't be an issue because the film's over 100 years old.
Well, yeah. And when the first one was made, they couldn't use.
Oh,
Transylvania.
yeah.
So maybe not saying Transylvania is by omission
an
homage.
Yeah, no, very much so. And as this remake is also a blend of the original film and the Dracula book. I still think it was nice they didn't mention Transylvania, almost like they're still respecting the original, but then having that the upside down Transylvania on the map as like a tiny little Easter egg that you can poke out is also giving a bit of respect to the novel.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a really nice detail. I don't know if anyone else noticed it.
I didn't, but I'm not surprised that you did. That's why it's there, for nerds like you.
I love that kind of stuff. So Ellen is obviously not happy with this. She doesn't want him to go. She senses that there is something wrong. She senses danger.
So is it just a sense of danger, or does she know what's going to happen?
I think
you said earlier, like, it seems like she can sort of see glimpses into the future.
She clearly knows. I mean, why she doesn't say to him there and then, I don't know. But, well, then she does describe to him a horrible nightmare that she had, and he thinks, he doesn't say it, but he's looking at her thinking, you're nuts.
Yeah, it says something like, maybe don't express this outwardly, or I can't remember the exact line, but like, don't tell other people these mad ravings. Like, thanks, dear husband. Thanks for the support. But
she goes on about this really disturbing nightmare she's having. She's crying, but she's also laughing at the same time. And Thomas is like, don't express these out loud.
Yeah.
You'll be taken to a madhouse, dear.
You'll be sectioned.
And I won't be able to clap your cheeks. Sorry, I should have said that. Sorry.
I know that was well done. But, like, the thing is, like, I was gonna say, like, oh, it's probably because it's like a reflection of the time period where women weren't believed quite as much, and you said something too outlandish, you were sent to some asylum or whatever in that particular time period. But to be fair, if I turned around now and started having similar, you wouldn't believe me.
No. Again, I'd probably either think you would like joking.
Yeah, and you, if I get sent away, you can't clap these cheeks.
And of course, I don't want that pleasure being taken away.
Of course you wouldn't.
So Thomas travels to Transylvania. He's on his horse, and he comes across. Who are they? Are they gypsies?
I think so.
He comes across a village full of people who I believe are gypsies. And at first, they like laugh at him, and then they tell him to leave.
I found that really bizarre. When he kind of first walks into this like little, I wouldn't even say it's a village, it's like one building that's sort of like gated.
Yeah.
And he like walks in, and they're all playing music at him and all sort of like staring at him and crowding around him, and he looks very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then they all just burst into like a fit of laughter. Like, I was so uneasy.
Yeah.
I was like, why, what's funny? I don't understand. But I don't think we're supposed to understand. I think that's the whole point. I think they're just like, oh, this is a city boy who's somewhere he doesn't belong.
Yeah.
Or whatever, you know.
He says he needs to stay for a night, and then he's going to Castle Orlok, to which everyone then freaks out, which is the same as the original and also the book. And this old lady takes him to his room, and she's begging him not to go.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'll pray. So he's obviously thinking, okay. And then another really strange moment happens where he looks outside, and it's all of the people walking through the forest with torches.
Oh yeah, do you know, I'd forgotten about this bit.
Not torches as in modern day torches, as in sticks that have been lit afire.
It's anachronistic.
They all just have modern day torches in 1838.
I can't see where I'm going. Quick, put the light on your phone.
This will look great for the gram.
Selfie.
Oh, like you're not appearing in the Oh.
You cheeky devil. Very good, because I'm having a bad hair day.
So yeah, they're all walking through the forest, and there's a woman naked on a horse, and they approach a body that they all start shouting, "Vampire! Vampire!"
Did they not exhume it? Like, wasn't it dug up from a grave or something?
I think so.
Because I swear that gets mentioned later that they exhumed the body. So like, they dug it up, and
then
they stab it.
One of them, shoves a metal spear or stake through the vampire's heart, and the body's like sort of choking up blood. To which Thomas screams, "No, please, Mother of God!"
Yeah. What's the significance of that? Like, was that just another vampire that had just gone a bit rogue?
See, I don't know. Was
maybe,
it an...
Maybe it's just kind of to establish that like there are potential vampires in the area because of Orlok. If he's turned people, or
It's possible.
it's just sort of to set up the idea that where the area they're in is really dangerous,
Really bad, dangerous.
And this is gonna. This might be a bit of a tangent, but it needs to be said. When I was a kid, obviously, like, you kind of grow... Like, vampires are sort of a catch-all thing that everyone knows about, right? Like, through various things, just general Halloween stuff, Scooby-Doo, like, Dracula. It's unavoidable.
Yep.
And so, like, there's all the tropes that, like, they don't like garlic or, drive a stake through the heart. But genuinely, when I was a kid, I didn't realise that a stake meant, like, a wooden stake. I always thought of, like, the cut of meat when I was a kid. So I always used to get very confused when they were just getting stabbed, and I'm like, where's the meat? I was a very gullible and stupid child, clearly.
Oh, I used to think the same, though.
Yeah. Like, imagine if you got, like, a steak and seasoned it with garlic. It'd be, like, the ultimate weapon against Dracula. Like, why are people not using that? Because it would clearly defeat him. Maybe like, douse it in some holy water and you're golden. And then get Gordon Ramsay to cook it up afterwards. But just make sure it's not raw.
Oh, my God.
Subtle foreshadowing.
Yes. So Thomas wakes up again. You don't really know if it's a dream or not.
But they make a point of showing that his shoes are dirty when he wakes up.
Ah.
Did you not clock that?
I did not notice that.
So he definitely did go out.
So, yeah, it must have happened.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
See, that's a nice little detail you noticed.
I know, I don't normally notice many things, but I noticed that.
So he wakes up and everyone's gone. He's been completely deserted. They've even taken his horse. So he's having to walk the rest of the way, to which comes my favourite shot of the film, when he's in that forest and it's dark.
Oh my God. I leant over to you when this was happened.
Yeah.
And like just after it sort of cut away, I was like, that was beautifully shot.
Yeah.
This speaks to the style of this. It is truly, truly beautiful and so well crafted. And this moment in particular was where it really hit home. Like, they thought about everything here.
Yeah.
So this is where he comes to the crossroads.
Yes.
Isn't it? Where there's like very kind of thick trees on either side. You can see like a crossroad in the center of the frame and sort of a light kind of coming from like further down the road. You can sort of see Nicholas Hoult. I say sort of, you can see him, but like the way he's lit, it's so hard to describe without seeing it.
Yeah. And like the snow is slowly falling down.
Yeah. And it lingers on that shot for a while. It gives you a good moment to really take it in. And it really kind of sets in. He is out in the middle of nowhere. He's on his own. He's probably the only person for miles.
Yeah.
And it's so eerie.
It feels like a dream.
And this is when the colour starts to seep out.
Yes.
Now, for a while, I was thinking, is this in black and white, or is it just so lit in such a way that I'm perceiving it as being in black and white? It was genuinely hard to tell because it kind of dips in and out of black and white and colour at various points. But I think it is by choice black and white. I think I've come to that conclusion that I'm like 90% sure.
I think the whole film is in colour, but it's so quite a lot of shots in it are so drained of the colour.
Yeah.
The colour's very limited.
Yeah. But that is definitely a choice that they made.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's really well done, but you don't notice when the change is.
Yeah.
Even still, one of my favourite examples of this happening is in The Wizard of Oz. I don't register that change.
Really?
No, when it goes from black and white to colour. I don't think I ever registered the change, the amount of times I've seen The Wizard of Oz.
Wow.
But like this, like, really didn't register it. It happened so slowly, and they handled the lighting of everything so smartly. I can't tell.
It's like the moment when he goes into Orlok's castle and they're walking up the stairs and Orlok is saying to him, "You are late." And then it's all very dark and very grey. And as soon as they go into the main room and there's the fire, the colour of that fire is so vibrant.
Yeah.
And it really stands out. I believe most of the film was naturally lit.
That's incredible.
That's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I see what you're saying. So like whenever something quite colourful does come in, it really stands out.
Yeah.
So while Nicholas Hoult is in the forest, he is then approached by Orlok's carriage, and Orlok takes him the rest of the way to the castle. And that's when they're going up the stairs, and Orlok's telling him that he's been late. He's like, "I'm so sorry." And then they go into the main room, and Orlok is just there, but you can't actually see him. Can't see what he looks like. He's still remaining in the darkness.
Yeah, I think the most you get is shadow.
Yeah.
Which plays quite a significant role throughout. There are so many little moments or sequences where seeing a shadow of Orlok, or just some kind of eerie shadow that sort of drains out all the light, plays a really significant role.
Yeah.
And that was a great way to sort of build him up. It was so eerie.
Yeah.
Don't they do the fingers on the wall thing at some point?
They do near the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, very differently from the original, but still in the same vein. But yeah, so Thomas comes in, and Orlok is saying to him, sit. And he sits at the table, and he's like pouring him a drink. They use some very old school filmmaking trickery, where at one point Orlok is at one end of the table, and he goes to offer him a drink, and the camera pans to where Thomas is, and Orlok is just immediatly next to him.
Yeah, you pointed that out as it happened.
And I just thought that was brilliant.
Yeah. Speaking of the panning, the way the camera moves in this is where I really started to notice it was around this point. It sort of pivots on an axis and stays level. It moves. The camera moves around very smoothly, but around sort of 360 degrees. It doesn't sort of get too choppy.
Yeah.
It's very smooth, very sleek, but it only seems to pan at, like, very specifically, it will turn by like 90 degrees or 180 degrees. So it's really fluid. But then there were points in the film where they hid cuts in these pans. So, like, there's a moment where, I think it's like, I can't even remember what moment this is, but like there's something in frame and then it pans up, but then the cut is hidden in the pan, and then it pans up to Nicholas Hoult. But obviously, in the logic of starting from perfectly level, panning up, and then Nicholas Hoult is there, so like it's almost as if it was all one set.
Yeah.
He was on the ceiling.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, but I know what I mean.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you watch it, you'll see it, right?
Yes.
But it was really disorienting. So when those moments come where it needs to sort of show that someone is scared and disoriented and confused, and they use that quite heavily, and it really did send my head a little bit. And there's like moments where it does it from like left to right, right to left, up to down. So well done, and really helped sell that disorientation at so many different points. Fantastic. But like, this is the scene where I really noticed it.
So he sits at the table, Orlok pours him a drink, there's some food prepared, Nicholas Hoult has all the paperwork, and Orlok is immediately sat at the other end. He's reading through some of it. Nicholas Hoult, he's got, I think it's a letter opener or something, and he's sort of cutting through it, and he's instantly afraid.
Yeah.
He immediately knows that something is not right.
Yeah. Not giving off a great vibe.
No.
Red flags.
Listen, Orlok, babes, right? You're not. You're just been a bit weird, love.
Yeah. Just, why'd you live in a castle?
I will not apologise for. Now, love, can you just hurry it up a bit?
This is totally off track. I saw like a reel the other day, and someone's interviewing people about New Year's resolutions, and he goes up to this like little old lady. He's like, "What's your New Year's resolution?" "My New Year's resolution is to," and the guy goes, "Talk faster." Just excellent stuff. Well done.
So, obviously, because Thomas is so afraid, he's sort of rushing, and he accidentally cuts himself with the letter opener, which immediately makes Orlok widen his eyes, and he's fascinated. He's locked onto him. And
that moment is quite tense.
And in that moment, he's like, what is it he says? He says, I can ease your wound. And then all of a sudden, it's like Nicholas Hoult turns towards the fireplace. Oh, that's it. He says, "Come towards the fire." And when Thomas looks and turns, he's not there. But then he turns to the other side and he sees the table, and Orlok is just slowly, almost gliding towards him.
Yeah. That movement is so slick.
Yeah. It's so... Yeah, because it's weird, because I remember sat there thinking, hang on a minute. He's looking at the table, but he's sat at the table. Oh, I see what Orlok's doing. He's tricking him with his mind. Yeah. And what's great about the shot when Orlok's gliding towards him is that the music is getting louder, and Thomas is very clearly screaming, but you can't hear him scream. And you see the sweat pouring down his face. You can see the vein in his forehead. He is petrified. And then it cuts back to Ellen, who...
Before we move on, do you think they did the gliding motion practically?
100%.
How?
What's those gliders called?
Yeah, see, I remember watching, you know, Doctor Who Confidential?
Yes.
Or like the behind-the-scenes stuff. When they did, it was Stephen Moffat's Davros episode with Capaldi, and they had this character called Colony Sarf, and the idea was it was like a group of snakes as a person, and so he was supposed to kind of like glide and slither everywhere, and they did that. But the movement wasn't quite so fluid, obviously not as much budget. But it reminded me of that. It really stuck out, but they definitely did it better in Nosferatu.
Yeah.
I mean, well, that's just a bit of a no-brainer, really.
Yeah.
But, like, it makes me giggle just thinking of, like, Bill Skarsgård on a little glidey hoverboard thing. I wonder if you had to, like, really practice to get that right.
Probably. I don't think it was actually that. They probably had something else for him to stand on.
Someone's, like, pulling him on, like, a skateboard. Like guerrilla filmmaking.
Bill Skarsgård's just there trying his best to stay in character. Please be careful. I do not want to fall.
Anyway, so
cuts back to Ellen, and she's being looked after. Hers and Thomas's good friends, Frederick Harding and his wife, Anna Harding, who are played by Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Emma Corrin. Craven! And who was her character in Deadpool and Wolverine? She was the villain.
Oh, God. Why can't I?
She was the sibling of Charles Xavier.
Yeah. I can't remember her name.
So, Craven
and the bald lady. Well, she's not bald in this.
They were both very good in this. Yeah. Now, while I still stand by my statement that I think the whole cast in this are really, really great, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, I thought his performance was slightly melodramatic.
Yeah, I would agree. I got that sense as well. I still think it's a good performance, but I feel like, you can sense the melodrama a bit more from him.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know if maybe that's by design, because he is
possibly
sort of the last person to be convinced of the threat that they're facing. And he just seems over it. Do you know what I mean? Like, his friend has come with his wife and said, look, I need to go on this like really long job to get this promotion, but my wife can't be left on her own, so I'm going to have to leave her here with you. But she keeps having these manic episodes, and I'm sorry, but you're just going to have to deal with that now. Because it's harder to gauge, but like this trip, don't they say it was going to take like 6 weeks?
Something like that.
So it's going to be a while. But you don't necessarily get that sense over the course of the film, because they just want to, you don't want to sit through the entire 6 weeks.
No.
Do you know what I mean? That would be really boring. But so obviously they're cutting. But like, so he's had to put up with this for 6 weeks. He's had to call the doctor on her behalf, presumably pay the doctor as well. Like numerous times. He's had all this weird going on in his house around his children, right? Like, I mean, I'd be melodramatic as well, to be quite honest with you. So I wonder if it maybe is by choice, but that if it is a choice, it still kind of makes him stand out as maybe the weakest link of the cast.
Yeah, but he's still good. He's still very good in it.
Yeah, that's not to undermine him by any means.
Especially the scenes with him, the Doctor, and Willem Dafoe's character.
Yeah.
When it's just those three.
Yeah, that little trio is very, very good because they bounce off each other very, very well.
Yeah, and that in particular, I've heard a few people mention that this feels like a Hammer film.
Okay.
And those moments where it's Aaron Taylor-Johnson, the Doctor, and Willem Dafoe's character, when it's just them talking about the vampire and the legend of the vampire and what the vampire needs, basically how you need to kill the vampire. That really did feel like I was watching a Hammer film.
Yeah, and Aaron Taylor-Johnson sort of takes the role of the skeptic. He's not the man of science like the other two, doesn't he? He's like runs a shipyard or something.
Yeah.
So he plays the role of the skeptic, and so I suppose maybe he is kind of supposed to be that way.
Yeah,
maybe that's how he was directed.
Possibly. So when it cuts to them, they're on a beach, and it's Ellen and Anna, who they're just taking a stroll across the beach, and there's all these crosses poking out of different parts of the beach, if you can remember.
Yeah.
It looks like a graveyard.
Yeah.
Which is an exact recreation of the iconography from the original.
Is it?
Where Ellen is, she's not taking a stroll, she's sat on a bench, and it's Anna and Frederick who are running towards her with a letter from Thomas. Because weirdly in the original, Anna and Frederick are brother and sister.
Okay.
But in this, they're husband and wife.
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting. But in terms of the beach itself and the crosses that are poking out of it, that imagery was pretty much exactly the same.
Okay.
And so they're taking a stroll, and Ellen is talking about death and how death can be, I don't know, like wonderful, or like death is coming. And Anna's like, Helen, what are you talking about?
Stark raving mad. 6 weeks of this. 6 weeks.
If you don't stop, I will get Craven to slash you.
He will hunt you.
So Anna leaves Ellen and she's walking with Frederick. And Frederick's he's clearly getting a bit horny, and he's like, oh, I just can't resist you.
Who I say.
And then Ellen is all of a sudden having another fit on the beach.
Which again looks spectacular.
Yeah.
I bet, like, doing some of that, the way she throws herself around, she must have hurt herself.
Probably.
Yeah.
I believe we cut back to Thomas. He wakes up in the castle. He's sort of wandering around. He's like, Count?
He must be freezing. No heating and just one fire on. Must be right chilly.
So he's trying to get out, but he can't.
Yeah.
And he finds a door that sort of leads downstairs below the castle.
So isn't that door sort of right by the entrance gate where he first walks in?
Yeah.
I like how when he first enters, obviously there's that very, very cool shot through the arch. And then when he's trying to escape, the framing is almost the exact reverse.
Yeah.
That was very, very cool. Just a tiny little detail.
Yeah.
Very good.
So he goes below the castle, and he's walking around, wandering around, and he comes across Orlok's sarcophagus, and he pushes the top part off, and we get our first proper full look of Orlok.
Very grotesque.
And he has a mustache.
Does
Now
he
I
not
know
have the original?
No,
Ah.
he doesn't have any hair in the original. He doesn't have a mustache. But I know that in the Dracula novel, Dracula has a mustache.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And I know that Robert Eggers has said that he wanted to base his version of Orlok on a Slavic nobleman, I think. I think that's what he said. So basically, he wanted the look to feel more authentic.
Yeah.
And I know there have been some people who don't like the look. I'll be honest, when I first saw it, I did think, okay, that's taken me aback a little bit. But it very quickly grew on me.
Yeah.
Like the mustache did on his face.
Oh god. What, really quickly?
Yes.
Wow. Maybe that's why Bill Skarsgård can just disappear into roles. He's just got total control over his body hair and the growth of it. Wow.
Just has to click his fingers and it's there.
Magic powers.
But I really liked it, the look.
He, just looking at him sort of like laying in the sarcophagus, he looks like, the word that immediately came to mind was just decay. That's what came across. And then when he starts moving, my brain went bestial. Like, it's so non-human. Like, I couldn't tell you what necessarily inspired the way that he moves when he's sort of in full vampire mode, I guess. But it resembles, like kind of like the Uncanny Valley. It resembles normal human movement just enough, but then it's also just enough so far removed that it hits that beautiful little sweet spot of just being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I wonder what inspired that, and I wonder if maybe that was a choice by Bill Skarsgård himself, or whether that was from the director. I keep forgetting his name because
Robert Eggers.
Robert Eggers, there we go. Eggy boy.
Eggy boy.
Egg.
It could have been both. Who knows? But Thomas, he's repulsed. He's shocked by what he's just found. And
isn't it full of rats as well?
it is, yeah. And so Thomas, knowing full well at this point that Orlok is not human, he picks up, what is it?
It's like a very convenient axe or something.
Yeah, it's like a pickaxe.
Yeah.
And he goes to strike Orlok, but Orlok very quickly wakes up, grabs it, and he stands up, and we see it fall, including his penis, for a very quick moment, which I was like, oh, okay, he's naked.
He's going to clap them cheeks.
Oh, no. Bend over, Thomas.
He's not a vampire, he's a sex pirate.
I misheard you. I thought you said he's a sex pest. So Thomas, very understandably, he runs for his life. He's being chased by Orlok.
I love how you say that. Very understandably. Like there's any other option.
I was watching an interview with Nicholas Hoult and Robert Eggers, and they were like analysing the scene where he's entering the castle for the first time, and you can just see Orlok in the distance, and he walks away. And Nicholas Hoult drew a speech bubble next to Thomas, going, he's clearly thinking, this is fine.
Nice.
So he runs and he slams the door, because there are two. Are they dogs or wolves?
I couldn't quite tell.
Yeah, because they were also kept in the dark. But there's two dogs or wolves. They might have been wolves. They chase Thomas. He slams the door. He waits for a moment, and then he opens the door, and you can just see the black figure of Orlok standing in the darkness with the wolves. And so Thomas slams the door again, but then Orlok uses his powers to open the door. He approaches Thomas, and then all of a sudden it just cuts to Orlok naked again, drinking Thomas's blood from his chest.
Yeah.
And you can really, the sound design was excellent, because you can really hear it.
Yeah, it's like someone really thirsty who's just started drinking a McDonald's Coke.
Yeah, but like a really, not even like a clumpy milkshake.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's probably a better description.
Yeah.
'Cause you can really hear the swallowing and the gulping, and it sounds very viscous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you hear Orlok breathe in conversation, but also when he's having to suck the blood, when he's having to inhale, and it's kind of like, it's very clear that he is a dead body who is having to inhale so that he can either speak or suck the blood out of a living person, which I just thought was absolutely fantastic.
That must have been a tremendously difficult thing to shoot as well.
Because you got to think, Bill Skarsgård has to have been under all that makeup, full body makeup, which would have, I believe he said, took about 6 hours to do.
Yeah, jeez.
And then he's then having to lay on top of Nicholas Hoult, and obviously acting to drink his blood. There'll be fake blood there, and he's having to act that like, and like pretending to drink. Yeah, that must have been.
You've really got to admire
grueling.
the actors when they get put in like situations like that. That must be so uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, apparently Nicholas Hoult, he was very thoughtful and compassionate to Bill Skarsgård, because Nicholas Hoult has done full body makeup before when he played Beast in the X-Men films.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So he knew what Bill Skarsgård was going through, and apparently, according to Skarsgård, Nicholas Hoult would go up to him in between takes, and he would say to him, "Oh, Bill, do you want anything? Do you want a drink or anything? Like, where's your hole? Like, I know what it's like. I know how uncomfortable. Do you want anything?" But because Bill Skarsgård was so in character, and I believe he said, I had to stay in character, otherwise the makeup would have just driven me mad. So apparently Bill Skarsgård's there just going, "No, leave me alone."
I don't want any Fanta. Perhaps Tango.
Now you're speaking my language.
Let me get a hit of that vape.
Just let me clap some cheeks. So we cut back to Ellen. Frederick has tied her to a bed.
Kinky.
Yes. And they call the doctor, who is played by Ralph Ineson. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I apologise if I've mispronounced it. Who has the deepest voice I've ever heard.
Yeah, like he could just read some bedtime stories, do some ASMR.
Yeah.
That'd send me right to sleep.
He should do an audiobook of Dracula.
Oh my god. You would just print money.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
Copyright me and not Ben. No, obviously not.
So he's obviously taking a look at her. He's like, just keep an eye on her. And then she's saying again, "He's coming."
Yeah.
And then...
Does he like chloroform?
I thought the same thing. It does look like he douses the cloth in chloroform
Sleep.
and just knocks her out.
Craven. Are we gonna clap those cheeks?
Oh, no. Oh, dear. And I believe the doctor then goes back to... Is it the hospital or is it...
like his like practice?
Yeah.
Or whatever it is.
And he's talking to one of his employees. What?
I know where this is going.
Yeah, he goes to one of his employees and he's saying, "Why have you put the patient in the basement? He's a patient, he's not a prisoner." And the employee says, "I beg your pardon, sir, but when we found him, he was eating the sheep."
Raw!
Joel leaned towards me. What was it you said?
It's like Gordon Ramsay. The lamb's raw. Like the way it was pronounced, raw, that sort of dragging out the last syllable, raw, was like sort of quite drawn out, like Gordon Ramsay does. That's all I could think of. And it made me chuckle quite a bit.
Yeah. And then they go to see the patient, which is Enoch, and at this point, he is completely gone insane.
Yeah, so isn't he like, he's like naked and he's like sketched like a pentagram on the floor?
Well, that's before the doctor goes to see him.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, there is that moment where he's surrounded by candles and he's naked and he's like praying to Orlok and saying that your demands will be met, my lord. But when they go to see him, he's been locked in this room, which is basically in the basement of the practice. And he's got like dead animals on the floor. And the doctor's like, what is that? And he goes, gifts for my master. I can't remember the lines verbatim.
He's holding a pigeon.
Yes, he is holding a live pigeon and he's stroking it and eventually bites the pigeon's head off. Now, obviously, it's clever filmmaking. It's not actually a pigeon. It would have been a fake. But he bites the head of the pigeon off and like blood is squirting from its body. Very Hammer style. Did you notice?
Yeah.
The way the blood is squirting from the body.
Yeah.
It was almost quite silly in a way. And then after he does that,
it cuts like back to the doctor and his like lackey in the doorway. It's just the delivery of the line of just, God, you probably did it better than me.
My dear fellow, why on earth would you do that?
It made me laugh so much. I think it was that like it cut to them very suddenly, and the delivery of it is so dry, and the framing of it is just so good. It has so much meme potential.
I can very easily see the memes coming out
like
quite
putting
soon.
it on like reels or something where like someone does something like really obviously stupid, and then it just cuts to the doctor. My good fellow, why on earth would you do that?
And then it cuts to the doctor speaking to Frederick, and the doctor tells him that Thomas's employer is mad. And so Frederick is there like, oh, where the devil are you, Thomas? And Thomas wakes up and he sees the bite mark on his chest. And he's sort of wondering what's happened. He's wondering why he's still there. Where's Orlok? And all of a sudden the wolves come in, don't they? And they go to attack him.
Yeah.
And he has to climb out of the window.
Oh, yeah. God.
And he's literally on like a very tight edge of the building, or the castle, sorry. But obviously he slips and he falls into the river. And I believe it's the villagers, isn't it, who find him and they nurse him back to health. And when he wakes up, he's like, no, Orlok, he wants Ellen. I know it. And then I believe at this point, that's it, Frederick and the doctor. I'm pretty sure we're like speaking slightly out of order.
Yeah, we'll be jumping around a little bit.
But
for sure.
yeah, but because it's a new film, we're still trying to re-jog our memory. But the doctor and Frederick go to see Professor Albin Eberhard von Franz.
Von Franz.
Who is played by the wonderful Willem Dafoe.
Yeah. Now, his line from the trailer is what always stuck out. It was him going, Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. Like Willem Dafoe just seems to be on in a bit of a career renaissance right now. Like I remember when I was younger, maybe it's just my perspective on it, I don't know, but he seemed to be everywhere around the time of like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Yeah,
he seemed to be everywhere. Then he seemed to sort of disappear for a while. Maybe that was, I think maybe he was doing like some runs in theatre or exploring some other things. And then all of a sudden, he seems to have like bounced straight back into the cultural zeitgeist with like smash after smash after smash, just to kind of rattle off a few great things in his career. Obviously, the most recent Spider-Man. He's done a few films with Wes Anderson. I think Grand Budapest Hotel being one of them. He did The Lighthouse, obviously. He's in Nosferatu.
He's in The Northman.
He's in, oh my gosh, it was up for an Oscar with Emma Stone, I think? Or am I thinking of something different? I don't know, but he just seems to have been in a lot of like really, really good things recently. Like I'm not going to like look up his whole thing because like I don't need to. Like if you've seen anything with him in, you know how good he is.
Yeah, he's got an amazing body of work.
Yeah. Like really fantastic. And this is no different. Like this is still an incredible. I don't think I could ever tire of him in cinema.
No, I was going to say,
ever.
I don't think, like, to this day, he's not, like, his acting hasn't faded, it's not changed, it's not become limited in any way. He's still on point. And in this, he was fantastic. He is essentially the Van Helsing character, in a way. So the Doctor and Frederick go to see von Franz because the Doctor was one of Franz's students. And at this point, we know that von Franz was fired from the university because of his way of teaching.
Yeah, he was starting to get into the occult.
Yeah.
And
So he was
like that.
basically laughed out of the university. Frederick and the doctor, they go into his house, and he's sort of just sat on a chair with his eyes closed, and he's mumbling to himself. But he wants to be left alone. And the doctor goes up to him and he pats him and he says, "It's good to see you, von Franz." And then von Franz is lifting his head and he's talking, and then opens his eyes and he's like, Oh, it's so good to see you, my boy. And then he goes up to Aaron Taylor-Johnson. He goes, "You look awfully tired, my boy."
How rude.
And then pours a drink and he goes, "Schnapps?"
You'd be looking tired as well if you've been listening to this woman raving all these weeks. 6 weeks I've had to deal with this. Oh, I suddenly gone Cockney. 6 weeks.
Oh, that's it. And I believe it then goes to Nicholas Hoult being nursed back to health, and he's shouting, "No, he wants Ellen, I know it." And we see the ship sailing to Visborg.
Yes.
And the men on the ship, they see this big box, and they are very concerned as to what's in the box, because more and more crewmates...
What's in the box? Sorry, had to.
That's a great reference. More... If only one of them shouted it. "What's in the box?" More and more crewmates start dying of the plague.
Among Us. All the crewmates dying. Bit sus.
And there's one crewmate who goes, "I'm going to go down and kill whatever's in that box. I'm going to get rid of this devil." And he goes down, he goes towards the box. And again, it was I don't know if you noticed it, but as he's walking towards the box, there's all those coats, isn't there? And they're like curtains and that.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things, Orlok is standing in between them.
Is he actually?
Yeah.
I don't think I caught
You
that.
see his body, his arm, and it moves.
I didn't see that. No.
Yeah.
That's good.
And so he opens the box, and it's just filled with rats. And then the camera pans up, and Orlok's right behind him, and he bites his neck.
I think
and he's dragging him.
I jumped at that as well.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I remember at this point remembering. Did you ever watch? It was like a 3-part series on the BBC of Stephen Moffat's adaptation of Dracula.
Yes.
Because I remember he was doing an interview about it, and he was saying that this kind of part of the Dracula story, the voyage, is quite a significant part that gets skipped over quite a bit. So I'm glad that it got some focus here.
Yeah.
Because it is something that genuinely does get missed.
I mean, there was that other vampire movie they made. Was it The Voyage of the Demeter or Demeter or something?
Yeah, which is based on this.
And the whole film is just based on that part of the story.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that, but I remember the whole episode, the middle episode was centered on the voyage in Moffat's series. And it's sort of, even though we know who's doing it, it's treated like a whodunit.
Yeah.
And the passengers keep sort of dying off.
I did
one.
love that episode.
And it was very, very good.
Yeah.
But I think the film gives it enough focus to show how significant it is, but also doesn't dwell on it too much to mess with the pacing. But it is nice that it actually got some focus.
Yeah.
Rather than just it being a single shot of a ship to kind of be and so now he's traveling.
Yeah.
We actually see the crew
Yeah.
having to handle some stuff.
And it's the same in the original. In the original, the ship does get quite a bit of focus as well. There's a great classic moment where one of the crewmates goes in below deck, and it's the same thing as, "I'm going to kill whatever's doing this." And as he looks over, Orlok, he's in a coffin, and the lid comes off, and it's just the way Orlok just sort of stands up like a plank of wood almost. And again, just that imagery is just so striking. So yeah, it's great that the voyage does get a lot of focus.
And it seems to play more of a significant part here because of the whole plague link as well, which is nice.
Yeah, because it's while they're at the house, Frederick and Anna's house, and Willem Dafoe's come over, and the doctor's there, and they're trying to figure out what to do, and there's a knock at the door, and Frederick rushes to the door, and he goes, "Who on earth is knocking at this time? It's past 3 o'clock in the morning."
Yeah, I mean, same, mate.
Yeah.
This is what we mean about the melodrama, though. But to be honest,
Yes.
I'd be feeling the same.
Yeah. And it's these men saying, "You need to come with us, sir."
I'd be saying that past 8 o'clock, to be honest. 3 in the morning, yeah, that's bad. But even earlier for me, sod that. I don't like having house guests beyond a certain time. Anyway, yes.
They take him to the ship that's clearly crashed.
Yeah.
And it's just full of rats
everywhere.
And they go, "This is a plague ship." And then we see Knock. That's it. He's been strapped to a chair, isn't he? And there's that guard who comes in because he's been knocked over, and he's like, "Help, help!" And then he bites a chunk of the guy's neck off. And then, as he's running out, he's looking like Igor.
Yeah.
He's like, "The master is here. He is here." So Ellen suddenly wakes up and she goes, "He's here!" And she's running downstairs and she runs out and she sees Thomas, because Thomas escapes.
Oh, yeah.
He leaves the villagers.
Yes.
And Thomas falls off his horse. He's injured. He's tired.
Oh, yeah.
He's withered.
Yeah.
And they obviously take him in and they're nursing him back to health. While that's happening, Nock is sailing Orlok in his sarcophagus to the property that he purchased. And obviously Thomas is there being like, "Oh, I never thought I would see you again." And she's like, "Oh, my love."
Just had my face caressed. You got very into that for a second.
I did. I was getting into character.
Fantastic actor.
At this point, they all are very aware of Orlok.
Yeah, like they've all finally come to terms with the fact of what it is they're dealing with, apart from Craven.
Frederick,
there we go.
I'm just
going to call him Craven.
He's
still a skeptic.
Yes.
And still being melodramatic.
Yes. Orlok is at the castle. Not castle, sorry. At the property.
The manor, or whatever it is.
And he's talking with Nock. And he's saying to Nock, you need to do this for me. And Nock's crawling to him. And he's like, "Yes, instruct me, direct me, use me."
Filthy
To which Orlok hits him and he says, "Silence, dog."
Listen, I'm not judgmental, but it's just a bit out there, you know? Like, you do you, love. You do you.
Is that just how Nock talks now?
Yeah, obviously.
Look, you can use me all you like, Orlok, all right? I don't mind it.
Just so long as we can have a cuddle after.
I just want to be all cuddled up to that bushy moustache.
Gives a snug.
So everyone's asleep. Ellen sort of awakes and she's sort of wandering around because she can hear something. She knows there's something there, and she opens the windows, but then she turns and Orlok is there.
Yeah, but I think if I'm remembering this right, you notice his presence first because you see not his shadow, but a shadow sort of move into the room.
Yes.
And then he's there where the shadow sort of stops. Very well done.
Yeah, very well done. And she's like, "Oh, you are horrid. I am an appetite, nothing more." And she's like, "No, I love Thomas." And he's basically saying to her that, "No, you are mine. You will be mine. But you must be mine of your own free will."
Yeah. So, do they have a pre-established connection?
Yes, I believe they were connected years before, and that's what resurrected him.
Right, and then she escaped. And
now he's come back. And he says there will be 3 nights. By the 3rd night, you will submit. And then she screams, and like she wakes up, and she's like, "Oh, God, it's so horrible." And then, that's it, she wakes, and she sees Anna on the floor being bitten by rats.
Yeah. Because she'd said before Orlok arrived, she felt unsettled and asked if she could stay with her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, she'd been like feasted upon
by rats with her hanging out.
Yeah.
So she's got the plague. She's going a bit mad.
Yeah.
Frederick's trying his hardest to stay calm, and Ellen's trying to warn him, but he's like, "No, you and Thomas must leave." But Thomas is not well. "I will pray for you." And so he's clearly had enough.
Yeah.
Like, he cannot be taking this anymore.
He's reached the end of his rope. 6 weeks.
So the doctor notices that the plague is getting worse. It's spreading. He's like, "No, we must go into lockdown. We must quarantine." And Aaron Taylor Johnson, Frederick Craven, he's listening to that. He's also listening to von Franz going on about the legend of the vampire. And he's just... I swear he's on the verge of just killing someone.
Yeah.
And he's like...
He just blows his top.
Yeah. He's like, "Get out of my house."
Yeah. 6 weeks.
He's like, I'm going to so-and-so." "No, but you can't go. We must quite... I'm not staying here for your plague to kill my wife." And it's like, that line, I was sat there like, no, I kind of agree. I kind of get where he's coming from.
Yeah.
And then it's on another night where they're all asleep, and Orlok's shadow covers Frederick. And he says in his language, "Wake not." out. And you hear the daughters, screaming. To which Anna wakes up and she's trying to wake Frederick, but obviously he's under Orlok's spell. He can't wake up. I wonder why he didn't want Frederick to wake up, but he didn't care about Anna waking up. Which was interesting. Unless he just enjoyed around with Frederick, making him not believe any of this nonsense.
Maybe just gaslighting him.
So Anna's like,
the true victim here is Frederick.
It's Frederick.
Yeah, I got his name right.
Yeah, it's Craven.
Craven.
And she's like, Frederick, the girls. But he won't wake, and so she rushes to them to see what's going on. And the very dark, Orlok has killed the kids.
It's very bleak.
Yeah. He's drained them of their blood, and it's the way he just chucks one of their bodies to the floor like they're nothing.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. And then he turns to her, and again, he's sort of gliding towards her. It's very, again, like the film being a mixture of the original film and the book. Watching Bill Skarsgård, especially when he's gliding, and when you see him with the hand and that, it feels like it's a mixture of like three different things. It's a mixture of the Orlok from the original, Bela Lugosi as Dracula in the Universal film, and a mixture of Skarsgård's own little spin.
Okay,
on the character.
I've not seen Bela Lugosi, the Universal one.
Yeah, it's very good.
So what about it?
Well, there's moments where it looks like he's gliding, and he's got the hand out, and he's got the accent. Not as strong and grisly as Skarsgård's, but he's still got that Transylvanian accent.
Okay.
So it's definitely a mixture of Orlok, Dracula, and then Skarsgård's
sort of original
interpretation. Like, so he's brought his own little thing to the table. It then cuts to a funeral of Frederick's wife and daughters.
Now, was this when Mark had fallen asleep?
Oh, God. I can't remember when it happened, because he would wake himself up, but then he would nod back off.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, part of Skarsgård's characterization was having this kind of very guttural breathing.
Yeah.
Right? And Mark was snoring. And when I first heard it, I thought it was on the film. Like, oh my God, he's here.
Oh my God, it's so realistic.
Yeah. And it just for a hot minute, it took me a second to be like, oh no, it's just my friend that's asleep.
And his snoring was getting increasingly louder.
There was a couple of people sat behind us that were sort of tittering at it a little bit.
But they were giggling.
Yeah.
And then you sort of nudged him and you went, I really think you should wake him up.
Yeah.
So I patted him, I was like, Mark. He's like, I'm so sorry. It's just so peaceful. Yeah.
It is in a sense the way that there are lots of moments of stillness and calmness. I can kind of understand that. I don't think he fell asleep because the film was boring by any means. I think he just had a bit of a long day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think before we sort of start trucking towards the end, like that needed to just be mentioned. That was for a hot moment. I'm like, oh my God, the sound design is so realistic. Wow.
So we're seeing the coffins of his wife and daughters being taken,
which. I know that this is supposed to be quite, it's somber, it's bleak, but all I could think is, why are the coffins so big? They're really tall.
Yeah.
I wonder if is that.
It's quite a unique design.
Is it like a cultural thing? Like, is that like a German
I'm
style?
honestly not sure.
I really don't know, because I thought maybe like there was a difference between like a sarcophagus and a coffin, but I think as you said when we discussed it afterwards, maybe they're just the same thing.
Well, coffins are made of wood. And a sarcophagus is made of stone.
So these were definitely coffins then, because they were made of wood, but they
but they were very tall,
yeah, very, very tall. And I just wonder if maybe that was something like, maybe it's been like really well researched, and it's the kind of thing that they would have had in that period of like that part of the world in that period of time. So I don't really know, but it was just a weird little detail that really stuck out to me.
You were giggling.
Yeah, it did. It did sort of make me like you could have stood them up, like the kids up, like vertically.
Yeah. You leaned towards me. Are they sitting up in the coffins? Like, what? So Frederick is obviously, the grief that he must be going through is just unspeakable.
Yeah, and I will give Aaron Taylor-Johnson some real credit here that like he really sells his grief.
Oh, definitely.
We've been sort of poking fun this entire time at like the melodrama of it, but again, I do think that is kind of by design.
Well, while I do say it was melodramatic, I don't think it was bad.
It's not bad at all.
I never thought his performance was bad.
And, he's been gaslit.
To hell.
and now he's just lost the 3 most significant people
In his life.
He must be torn apart, and so the way he's sort of biting at the others and very defensive.
It's completely justified. It's when the doctor says, we must speak with him. And I love the line that Thomas says, just give him a moment. His grief is too much.
Yeah.
And then Defoe goes to speak to Ellen, to which Aaron Taylor-Johnson turns and he's screaming at them like, leave, leave! And when his voice breaks, as he's crying for his wife and daughters, and then Thomas is grabbing him, no, Frederick, it is true, what they say is true. And he shows him his bite mark. And then they're in the carriage, planning on what they're going to do. And Thomas says, I will get a silver spike or something, and I will pierce it through him. They never say pierce it through the heart or anything.
No, they don't even call it a steak.
They don't, which
Maybe
I thought
they
was
use
interesting. A chicken.
Maybe pork.
A bit of lamb. Get some garlic on there.
Just make sure it's not raw.
Yeah. And Frederick is like, he's apologising because he just can't accept it. And Franz, they drop him off, and Ellen's like, I'll walk you to your door. And Franz is basically saying to her, you are the only one who can stop this.
Yeah, like they've got like this plan, but like it's Ellen and
Franz,
there we go. Ellen and Franz, who sort of make the real plan.
Yeah.
So like there's a decoy plan and then the real plan.
Because he knew.
Yeah, he knew what
Franz
was gonna
knew
happen.
all along that it was her who had to be the one to stop him.
Yeah, and so he kind of like leads the others away on this false plan.
Yeah. Because the legend that Franz explains in his research is that there has to be one to sacrifice themselves in order to stop the beast.
Yeah, it's like the one dying for the good of the many.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Yeah.
So Thomas and the doctor and that are getting ready to go to Orlok, find the sarcophagus, and essentially kill him with a stake through the heart. But they can't find Frederick, so they go after him. And Frederick goes back to the graves of his wife and daughters, and again, he is just beyond heartbroken. He is just completely defeated.
The worst 6 weeks of his life.
He's crying over his dead wife and daughters, and he pushes the lid off of his wife's coffin, lifts her up, and starts kissing her.
Yeah,
And he's also dying of the plague.
Yeah.
He's like coughing up blood, and by the time they find him, he's dead. But he's in a very odd position in between his wife's legs, to which I was sat there thinking, was he trying to have sex with his dead wife?
Just had to clap those cheeks one more time.
Oh, no.
No, I think it maybe wasn't intended that way. I feel like it was supposed to be more sort of romanticised and seedy.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, even it's still a dead body.
Yeah. You've got a very valid point there. Yeah.
So
He's snogging a corpse. Sake, Craven. You resort to that after 6 weeks.
So Thomas, again, he is also heartbroken because Frederick is a very dear friend, and they've all agreed that they have to burn everything. So they set fire to Frederick, his wife, and his daughter's bodies.
Like the crypt or whatever it is.
Yeah. Then they go to Orlok's sarcophagus, and there's just rats that have completely covered the floor. And Franz is like, go forward, Thomas. And they approach the sarcophagus, pushes the lid off, and he rams the silver spike or whatever it is through the chest of Nock. It's not Orlok.
Plot twist.
And Nock is waffling on about he will be granted his wish from the master. And Franz is like, die, heathen! And he's hammering the stake further into him. And Thomas realises at that point that Franz knew all along.
Yeah.
He's like, this was a decoy. You knew that Ellen had to be the one to stop him. So Thomas and the doctor run off to go back to Ellen while Franz is sort of like... he gets very... I want to say very Defoe. He's like smiling big, his eyes are really wide, and he's like screaming about the legend, and he's setting fire to the entire
some
room.
Of that Green Goblin energy.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah. He does kind of manic very well.
He does. And so Ellen calls to him once again to Orlok, and we get the recreation of the classic silhouette walking up the stairs scene.
I think isn't there a shot like that goes over the entire town as well, where you're seeing Orlok's the shadow of his hand.
He's holding his hand out, and you see
city.
the shadow of his hand just covering the entire city, which I thought was great.
Yeah, heading straight for Ellen as well, isn't it? It was just so
and in the recreation of the classic silhouette scene, it's not just him going upstairs with the hands out like that. It's like the camera's panning across multiple rooms, and his shadow is just like journeying over the walls, over the curtains. And again, he's got the hand out in the classic way.
Yeah.
And you see the shadow of his hand open the door, and he's speaking in his native tongue, saying, "You have now replenished yourself," or something. And he's saying, "You are now giving yourself to me of your own free will."
Yeah.
And she says, "Yes, I do." And he's saying, "You are now mine." And he approaches her and they kiss. And then she lowers herself onto the bed, and Orlok, again, he's breathing. And it cuts back to Ellen, who is now naked. He then gets naked, lowers himself onto Ellen.
It's uncomfortable to watch because of how grotesque he looks. And his stature is quite large, especially compared to Ellen. And it just,
it's disgustingly romantic.
Yeah. That was something I think Mark did point out as we were leaving the cinema. I do remember him saying that it was very romanticized.
Yeah.
And it does lean into that angle, despite the fact that it is quite horrific.
And it's like they're like caressing each other, and then he lowers down to her chest, and you hear the crunch as he digs his teeth into her.
Yeah, again, the sound design.
Yeah, fantastic.
So good. Oh, God. I think I winced at that moment. I did wince.
And he's sucking more and more of her blood. And we see Thomas just, as the sun is starting to rise, Thomas is just racing back to Ellen as fast as he can. Cuts back to Orlok, who sort of stops sucking the blood. He notices the sun, but then Ellen goes, no, more.
Yeah, like sort of coaxes him back in.
Because part of the legend as well that Franz mentions is that if the beast finds a sacrifice who it is infatuated with, it will forget about the sunrise. So he continues sucking the blood, and then the sun is fully risen. Now, in the original Nosferatu, when the sun comes up, he turns to dust. He's standing, he holds his hand out, it's very sort of over the top, and he just fades away and turns to dust. Obviously, you've got in Dracula as well. There are so many versions of Dracula where he turns to dust, or he sets a blaze on fire and burns away, or he explodes, or something like that.
Turns to jelly.
But I loved what they did in this, where when he looks, and his eyes are black, but when he looks at the sun, the colour in his eyes go, which I thought was great. They go grey.
Yeah.
And then blood starts pouring from his eyes, his nose, his mouth, his ears.
Yeah.
According to Robert Eggers, they even had a piece where the blood was spilling from his anus. Not sure why they did that. And so it's like the sun is draining the blood from him.
Yeah.
And it's just making him go back to being
a decayed
dead corpse. Yeah. And it's just an amazing shot when he opens his mouth and he roars at the sunlight, and you see him then in full form, and then he slowly lowers and dies.
And I think because he's sort of draining of blood, he's losing moisture, and you can kind of see like drying out.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's so detailed.
Yeah.
And then Thomas runs in with the doctor, and Ellen, she sees Thomas, but Ellen does die. And I thought it was very poetic that the first thing that Ellen sees at the beginning of the film is Thomas.
Yeah.
And the last thing she sees at the end of the film is Thomas.
Yeah, because Thomas is her love, really. She doesn't want anything to do with Orlok. She wants to escape him, but so long as like he's tormenting her, she can't be happy with Thomas. But obviously, in defeating Orlok, she can't be with Thomas.
Yeah.
It's very, very bittersweet.
And we see Franz enter, and he places his hand on Thomas's shoulder. He says, "Forgive us." And I can't remember what he says, but he's reciting, I think, more of the legend. And then it cuts to the final shot of the film. It's a bird's eye view of Orlok's body on Ellen's. And at this point, Orlok, while he still has his skin, he looks like a skeleton.
Yeah.
Which is very haunting.
Yeah. He's very thin, and you can sort of almost see like the muscles and the ligaments and the bones, and how like the skin's been kind of pulled taut around it.
It's very
so you
tight.
Can sort of see the insides.
Yeah.
And it was a very beautiful shot to end on, but also very uncomfortable to look at.
Yes. And then it cuts to black and the film ends.
Yeah. I do feel like we have missed a scene.
We've definitely missed a few moments.
I remember there's the sex scene between Thomas and Ellen, which I thought was like amazing, because it was Ellen is simultaneously like trying to have sex with Thomas whilst being possessed, which
by Orlok,
was incredibly well acted by Lily Rose Depp. But I think I've already kind of hit every point that I need to on that, like the way she sort of throws herself around in that very kind of physical way of being possessed.
We've definitely skimmed over some parts, just because I think if we do, obviously we don't want the episode to go on for too long.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, I think we've pretty much said what's needed to be said about, you know, the cast and the story itself and the special effects in it, and I mean everything about it was just great.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's crafted. It's not made, it's crafted. That's how I describe this. So well put together. Do you think it's going to age well? Because I think it will. I think this is going to be sort of one of the sort of, in the same way like as the original, it's going to be heralded as like a classic for years and years and years and years.
Definitely,
yeah. And part of me does wonder kind of like what's next for like all the cast and all the significant people that played a part in making this film happen, because all of the people in it just seem to be going from strength to strength at the moment.
Definitely, especially Eggers. I'm really looking forward to seeing what his next film will be.
Yeah, and again, for someone who didn't really have high expectations of this, I was truly, truly blown away.
Yeah.
I probably laughed through it more than I needed to, but again, it was me just kind of being childish or like nitpicky or whatever, like the coffins and the thing that reminded me of Gordon Ramsay and that little moment of my good man or whatever it was.
Yeah, my dear fellow.
My dear fellow.
Why on earth would you do that?
So, you know, but aside from me just being a little child, this is really fantastic.
Yeah, and yeah, again, I completely agree. I really enjoyed it, and I will definitely be watching it again when it comes out on Blu-ray and streaming and whatnot.
I'm really looking forward to seeing this again.
Well, speaking of the Blu-ray, Eggers is releasing an extended cut.
Oh, is he? Oh, we'll have to watch that.
We'll have to watch that, definitely. Yeah. So, yeah, if you have seen the film, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Mention the parts that we didn't mention in this review.
Yeah, or maybe if you aren't quite as familiar with Nosferatu, but just like listening to us talk, although I don't know why, maybe just tell us about your favourite interpretation of Dracula or Nosferatu. Yeah. You know, it's a timeless and classic story that I think everyone's had some kind of experience with. So yeah, let's share your experiences.
And we will leave it there.
Yeah. Thanks for having us back, guys. It feels good to be sat here recording again.
Feels lovely to be back.
What a start.
Yes, 100%. So we all hope you have a good week, and we will see you soon.
Take care.
Take care, my loves.